Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of the Q2Q Cast. I'm your host, as always, Collin Miller, and this is another in my series. I think this is my fourth or fifth, so it's losing track because I've recorded a lot in a row, but you'll know because you can just look in the episode library, so you know better than I at this point. But yes, I am doing a series of interviews with the cast and crew of TRANSFOLK, and I'm very, very pleased to be sitting here with, and correct me if I mispronounce your name, Frank Atchley, is that correct?
Yep, it is.
All right, Frank. Well, first of all, tell us, how you got involved with the project and what you did on TransFolk, which, if you've been listening to the series I've mentioned, is an up and coming TV show that is premiering in October in Galveston.
Yeah, so my role is Logan. It's one of the lead roles in the show. And I have known the writer and director Carly for probably 5 or 6 years now. And she reached out to me one day on Facebook and said,
Mhm.
"Hey, question for you. Would you be interested in playing a small part in this show that I'm working on? I'll send you over the script." And as I was reading it, I was like, oh, this isn't a small part. But I ended up saying yes, and then we
She was
started
easing you
trying.
in, it's not
Yeah,
gonna be too
yeah,
many lines, it's not gonna be too long.
right. Yeah, no, and I had never. This is my first time doing any acting of any
Really?
sort. Yeah.
Oh, cool. It's just like with Gabrielle. She mentioned that. It was her
Oh,
first time as well. So, I mean, kudos to Carly for just finding the right people for the
mhm.
roles. Regardless, I think people get so caught up in, what has this person done or do they have enough experience? And, not knocking experience, but at the end of the day, it's does this person feel right in the role? I mean, there are certain films that have come out in the recent years. This was a couple of years ago, I think, but like Red Rocket, I think they cast a lot of locals. Florida Project, I think they cast a lot of locals, and there's just something to it. I'm still waiting to watch Trans Folk. I've heard a lot about it, but I want to be, surprised. I think that's the way to really view a TV show is, not knowing all about it before you see it. So I want to
Yeah.
be thrilled like everybody else, but and so I don't know if like the tone is very different to Florida Project or Red Rocket. So I'm not comparing those two things, but there was something about what each of those directors did in those respective projects that captured the way the area really felt because a lot of the people came from either that surrounding area or, a little bit outside the radius, but still very close. There's just something to it. So, are you from Galveston or somewhere nearby?
I'm not from Galveston. I live in Houston, but I've been to Galveston plenty of times. Mostly to work with Carly. We've done a lot of singing competitions down there together. We met originally when I was helping her with filming some of the singing competitions, and then more recently I joined in as a contestant. And it was after that one that she reached out to me about the show Transfo. So the drive to Galveston isn't exactly fun,
Oh.
but but I would say it's definitely worth it for this. She put a lot of really good effort into the show, and I'm excited to see it as well. I think we've all only seen what's been put out for the advertisements. Definitely
Same. Yeah.
excited to see it all come together.
I know. I really feel like that's by design too. She's wanting that is for everyone to like just brace themselves for seeing all that hard work
Yeah.
put to the screen. That's amazing. That just doesn't just happen as you and Carly and everybody else can probably just attest. It's hard to make these things regardless of how professional you are, how and that's been, throughout all of these interviews people just talked about how professional everyone is and how people were all trying to make the same exact project. I think that's so important. But even then, you know, it's tough. I'm sure even big budget movies have their own series of obstacles to jump through. In other words, just putting it out there, people, hard to make a movie. So hard to make a TV show. It should be celebrated that things get completed. If you think about the ratio of ideas that, don't even get out of a creator's brain, but Carly had the fortitude to actually not just think of the idea, but put it on paper and then not only shoot it, edit it, not only shoot it and edit it, but take the finished product and put it somewhere. Those steps take so much energy. So super, super proud and happy to even just bask in the glory that is you and everyone else on this project. So I'd like to know just a story from your time. If you have a couple of stories, as much as you'd like to share, I'd like to know about your time on TRANSFOK.
Yeah, sure. I know as far as like getting everything together, I know I made it a little difficult for Carly.
Oh, what do you
I
mean?
well, so I got injured at work,
Oh,
and had to cancel on some dates. And then I got sick, and so I had to cancel on some more dates.
damn it.
And then I started losing hair. I've been going through some like hair loss issues, and
Hmm.
so there's a lot of special editing that had to be done for my hair because it was back-to-back
Yeah.
scenes and they were happening, the filming was happening months apart, which wouldn't have been an issue. I could have changed my hairstyle back if I still had the hair growth there.
Oh, wow.
Uh, but yeah, between that and then me working full time at a hospital, it just kind of it made I know I made it difficult getting the time and the dates to work for her, but eventually we got there. There was even a day where there were a couple of days where when I went to Galveston, I had been awake for, 24 plus hours, just trying to make sure that we got some of that filming in for those scenes because there were people in town that weren't going to be able to be there again. So, um, but just beyond that, I have a bad case of the giggles. I laugh a lot, uh, and it'll be over the smallest thing.
That's not a
And
bad thing.
yeah, and I know it'll like throw everyone off. But I always feel bad when it happens, but I'm like, and I can't stop laughing at this one joke or this one
Yeah.
mess up that I just had. So
Is there any moment that was you giggling that remained in the movie? Do you know? I guess you haven't seen it yet, so you may not
yeah, I
know.
have I have no idea. I feel like a lot of it was happening during serious
Oh
moments.
shit.
It was happening because I would catch somebody's eye or I would mess up my line or mispronounce a
Yeah.
word or smush two words together and create an entirely different word that's not actually a word and just couldn't get off of that.
It happens. I mean, blooper reels exist in even the most big budget TV shows and movies for a reason, I think. But I'm gonna say I celebrate that because if you're giggling, then the director is doing something right because it should. And I talked about this with Paul and a few of the other guests. I feel like it should be fun to make a movie. It is about making a product, you know, Gabrielle talked about that, and we've all talked about that as like the thing itself must always be important, not just the shoot, it's the end goal, right? But at the end of the day, it is just you're there to play. That's why it all comes from, I mean, before there was film, there were plays, and that's what we're there to do the play. So I'm curious, you mentioned that you are a singer. So is that where you sort of started in the arts, and then how did you start singing with Carly? I know you gave us a brief history of that, but I'd like to know more.
So I've done karaoke for years and years, but when I moved so I moved here from Virginia just after Hurricane Harvey.
Mhm.
And started going to the karaoke bars and I made good friends with people who it turns out were like amazing singers and had been on like The Voice and American Idol. And they were
Oh.
just like, we're gonna adopt this mediocre karaoke guy as our friend and he's gonna hang out with all these really awesome singers who are judges of singing shows and we're gonna bring them along with us. And I met Carly at the Rumors in Beaumont.
Hmm.
um, and by way of going to Rumors in Galveston after that, she asked me one time if I would be willing to help with one of the shows, and I said sure. And it turned into me filming all of like the entire show. Um, and then just kind of developed from there. But yeah, I hadn't actually been a part of any singing competitions until she did one at the 23rd Street bar, which is where we did a lot of the filming for the show.
Mm-hmm.
and it was my first time doing any competition. Um, I
Wow.
feel I actually like stepped way outside of my comfort zone just doing the competition, and on top of that, like getting out on the stage and actually having like I kind of had a gimmick for each song that I did, and like I had costume changes and stuff, and it was so beyond anything that I had done. But Carly was like so supportive during it. Um, I got sick during that show too. It's just yeah. So it's
Stop
like
it. Stay well. What are you doing?
I I know it's like, oh, I'm gonna do this adventurous thing that I've never done before,
Yeah.
and no, you're gonna get bronchitis instead.
Here you go. Thanks, Mary. God. No, I feel that there are so many. I'm about to take a trip in a few weeks to go to Vancouver for this sustainable production forum, and I'm really excited about it, but there's some issues with, well, not issues with, but I need to like make sure all my passport stuff is in order, and so I've been, oh my gosh, like pulling my hair just to make sure I have every component. Is it perfect? Is it okay? Like, can I go? I don't want to ruffle any feathers, but at the end of the day, also, it's like I don't want that thing that's out of my control to stop this amazing opportunity. That is just, I don't want it to go away. So I totally get that when you're like, and now I have bronchitis. Are you kidding me? I mean, that's so out of your control. It's frustrating. And I guess that's just an element of theater. I was fortunate enough the last time I'm gonna say the C word, not the fun C word, but the bad C word. I got COVID after a Christmas show a couple years ago. And, I should say, fortunately, it was at the end of the run. So I didn't miss any shows. But like, I've been on shows where, whether it's COVID or not, it could be any number of things. Sometimes you just lose actors for X amount of days and then you just
Yeah.
have to deal with it. So I mean, you mentioned some of those struggles were directly related to, shoots you had to do later or maybe edits that Carly had to do to make things more cohesive. But were there any kind of struggles that the production faced that you're aware of that, they kind of overcame, and how did they overcome it? Because and the reason I'm asking that is I think that a lot of people get discouraged about working on lower budget features or independent television shows, and I want people to continue to work on them and not stop. So that's why I'm
Yeah,
asking.
I know one of the big issues was just getting people on the show, whether it was a recurring member or even just extras for a day. I think I want to say I was the second or third person to be Logan from the time that
Oh,
Carly first started the show.
T.
Yeah. So there's a little
Uh-huh.
a little insight there. I don't know what
Girls
happened
and
to the
gays, you
other
are getting the exclusive. Just letting you know. This is exclusive. Please continue.
Carly, sorry if I'm spoiling a surprise here. No, I don't know what happened to the other one or two people, but I know that it can be hard getting people who can commit and whose schedules can line up. I know there were a couple other people who had to drop off the show while I
Yeah,
was on it. We had trouble finding people come in to be extras, just to be like fillers in the bar or to
right.
just like be a hand in a scene, like literally have their hand go in front of the camera. Yeah, so it
Right.
uh it was a struggle, but Carly got, she's so wonderful, and like she has such a great personality, and she has this presence that just makes you want to say yes to doing stuff for her. Um, but I mean, she was making posts after posts and messaging people, and I could only see what we could see, on the public feed and in our
Yeah.
group chat. But I just know her phone is probably full of hundreds of messages to people asking, can you please just do this quick favor for me?
Yeah.
And Carly is the kind of person where like she's gonna be there for you when you need it too.
Yeah.
So I I wish that more people had shown up when she had reached out for these things, but in the end, we did get those scenes filmed. And I know that she's an amazing editor too. So anything that was missing or lacking shouldn't be for the show.
Yeah, no, and that's something I'd love to discuss a little more, is I feel like Carly is just such a pioneering force on this series, and it sounds like her leadership is really what brought everyone together, even in the, like you said, the darkest of times or the most uncertain of times. I just think it's essential to a production that doesn't, have the biggest budget with the hugest sponsors. That's not going, immediately to wide distribution. I mean, she's doing a premiere in Galveston, and that's amazing. But I mean, Transfolk could go so much further too after that. I mean, who knows what, the legs of this will be. And I foresee it will be quite far in the future, that we'll be looking back and going, oh my gosh, remember when it was that premiere in Galveston,
Yeah.
when transfolk is just something that people talk about. That's the vibe that I get from it. And it's so thrilling to be a part of these early stages when nobody knows what it is yet. So it's freaky awesome. And so let's talk about Carly. You hear that, Carly? We're gonna dish. Just kidding. Um, what do you think makes her such a great leader? And I am all for just like gushing over our delicious babe. But also, I just think that, directors, writers, producers, anybody that has filled one of the many roles that Carly fills on this production, maybe they could take something from it, and you don't have to be an expert like I try to tell the other guests, but you experienced it and you clearly have reasons for working with her and for her. So I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is Carly just has like this determination to do what she sets out to do. I mean, whether it's setting up these singing competitions or writing an entire TV show from scratch, because that's just how her mind is. Um, she just has like this air of determination. You can see it anytime she does anything, whether, when she's in drag, when she's out of drag, if she's just ready to start the day filming and duct taping a camera to a tripod because it won't stay on right,
Yeah.
or getting, a random guy to wear a wig for her to sit in the back of a room as an extra.
Mhm.
She just has this vision and will do whatever she needs to do to make it happen. And that's something that, I mean, anyone can get on board with, right? I mean,
Yeah.
how many times do we see someone go, "Oh, I want to do this, or I want to do this, or I want to start my own company, or I want to write a TV show, or I want to be an actor," but they hit that roadblock and they're like, "Oh, well, now it's not really worth it," or "I don't know how to overcome this," or "I don't want to do the thing that I know will work for it." Carly's not that person. She
Right.
knows what needs to be done for it, and if she doesn't, she's gonna figure out something that works anyways, or find someone who does know what to do, and she's gonna run with it, and she's gonna get it done.
Never, ever give up. And don't think you have to be an expert on everything. I think people knock themselves a few. Some people think they're an expert on everything and they're not. And sometimes that can be not so great. But I think there's a healthy balance of just being real and going, okay, this is what I bring to the table. And there's clearly all kinds of things like wig power or knowing how to write amazing dialogue. Like there's tons of things that Carly was just like, yeah, I'll bring this all to the table. But you also need to, and this is a message to anybody out there who wants to do anything indie or even just low budget, you got to pull your resources. And I wish, I love, Frank, that you said that you wish more people could do the kinds of things that Carly was doing because if we all were more like that, if we all were more about activating others to kind of help us, and then also in the reverse of that, activating for others
Mhm.
and helping, then I think we would just get more projects off the ground. And when we're making LGBTQ drama and comedy down here, it wouldn't feel so isolated. And I think it would just be more connected. And so that's sort of a message to everybody listening is make sure that you are in some ways donating your time. I mean, it's not easy in this very competitive, stressful time to just donate extensive amounts of time. But what I mean by donate your time is see if you have quote unquote time, whether time is energy or if it's a particular skill set or if it's just a little bit of moral support, a word, a share, like sharing this podcast, which is in service of Transfolk, the series, these little timeshares, if we did more of them, I think it would just be less exhausting for the people that feel like they're the ones that have to keep doing and then
Mhm.
they don't really get back. So pleased that Carly is receiving from people like you as well as giving so much to the community. And so you said you're from Houston, correct?
I'm from Virginia. I live in Houston, but
You live
I'm
in Houston.
originally from Virginia.
Okay, well then let's talk about that. So can
Okay.
you tell me a little bit about, and this is like, well, do we have 15 hours? But what was a major difference that you recognized in the culture of Virginia versus when you moved to Houston? Or was there a lot of overlap?
Sure. I mean, traffic is traffic. It sucks everywhere. There's just more cars in Houston, so it seems like the traffic is worse. But when I really sit back and compare it to where I grew up, the
Yeah.
interstate is the interstate. It always sucks, especially at 5 p.m. on a Friday, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I think the biggest difference when I moved here was definitely the community, the LGBTQ community. Um, in Virginia, there's not many areas where you can find groups or even just go to a bar and know that you're, in a place where that community is, or that it is a specific gay or lesbian bar.
Yeah.
And the area that I grew up in, there was one. It was called Queen's Gambit, and that's where I started doing karaoke. Um, but it's not necessarily just a gay bar. It was just the bar in the area where I grew up.
Hmm.
So whether you were straight or gay, that's where you went because it's what was around. Um, there was a small community in Richmond where I saw my first drag show at one of the few lesbian bars in America. Um, and that introduced me to the world of drag, which I think is amazing. Um, but yeah, moving here and there's an entire area, Montrose and Galveston and all of Austin, let's be real. You know, I mean, it's just amazing that there is so much available to the community. I mean, you have Legacy and the Montrose Center and all these amazing bars like JR's in Montrose and 23rd Street in Galveston and Island Time Bar now. Um,
Oh, we talked about that, Gabrielle. We talked about Island Time. Yeah.
yeah,
What happens on Island Time stays on Island Time, right?
days on Island Time for
Yeah, for
sure.
sure.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
so
just
what's your, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
it's such a it was a culture shock for sure moving here. One, I wasn't from a big city, so
Right.
coming from a place with like a a cow population that was pretty high, and then moving here and it's like, oh look, a cow, but I'm nowhere near Houston. Um,
Yeah,
there's definitely a big change for that,
sure.
and the lights are different. I know that sounds weird, but the street lights are different. They're horizontal instead of vertical, which is very interesting to me.
I
Still,
actually think that's kind of beautiful. Like
after
I know it, just to
years.
have that specific detail. I mean, I was talking about the with a friend the other day, the brilliance of the script, which has been copied and copied and copied over the years, but of Pulp Fiction and how it's
Mhm.
so now those conversations of, gosh, isn't it cool how in Belgium, the water spins a different way,
Yeah.
but what I think I love that the space of that conversation is still taking place, even though we
Mhm.
have access to the world in some way on our fucking phone. So it's like these mysteries
Yeah.
about different, I mean, you're not even talking overseas, it's all US, but
Yeah.
even that change, that subtle change, I just love those little nuances. Is there anything else that you can think of that's like that? Just like a
Yeah,
little
the
weird difference?
U-turn lanes, specific U-turn lanes, especially on
What?
feeder roads in general. We don't have that stuff in Virginia.
What?
Yeah, but I will say we have more
It's
roundabouts
wild.
in Virginia. So the few roundabouts that are here are there's one going to the medical center, coming off
Okay.
of Montrose and Maine and Fannin. That is actually the roundabout is incorrect. the traffic that's coming into the roundabout has the right of way,
What in the
which is
name?
wrong. The traffic that's in the roundabout is supposed to have the right of way, and it's very confusing.
No.
And even with all of the signage that explains it, people still don't understand how to use a roundabout, even the way that it is described to be used by the signage. And it's so silly
Oh,
because there's not many here, but there are more in Virginia. So I felt confident. And then I was like, oh, here they give the right of way to the people who are going 50 miles an hour into the roundabout
hmm.
instead of the people who are already in there trying to get over into the correct lane to get off on the correct
Yeah.
exit. And it's very confusing.
My word. Yeah, no, preach. I'm like, of course that'd be fucking people up. Yeah,
Right.
given the way some people drive, I'm surprised we don't hear about that more.
Yeah.
I'm so curious and like obviously Carly, I know that you're listening. Your drag is the best. And Chaselin, if you're listening, your drag is also the best. But like I want to know, Frank, where is the best drag? You've mentioned lots of different places. We've got Galveston,
Uh-huh.
Houston, Virginia. Like, tell me about just some like really special drag. Maybe it's like some performers, or maybe it's a bar, and like set the stage
Hmm.
for us.
Hmm.
Maybe
I
not
will
best. It
say,
doesn't even have to be the absolute best. It's just like some really, really delicious drag for you.
okay. Um, I've seen some really good drag at Ripcord in Montrose.
Ooh.
I mean, I feel like I'm biased no matter what bar I say because I've worked for a lot of these, like I've helped on a lot of these drag
It's
shows.
your take. It's
You know,
just your
so
hot
like being
take.
behind the scenes on them, I feel a little
Yeah.
biased, you know. I feel like I have to be careful what I say too, in case someone's listening.
Of
Um,
course.
I would be remiss too if I didn't shout out my partner, Viva Vidalia. She's a drag queen in Houston,
Okay.
and is
Okay.
is currently competing for Miss Gay Texas America. So, wish her luck on that tonight, actually.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
that's so exciting.
So, yeah, I mean, well, when you say favorite drag, it's hard to say truly because
Yeah,
there are so many different
exactly.
shows. I mean, there are campy shows that Annalie Naylor puts on, and they're hilarious and dirty and gross all at the same time.
Hmm.
Um, and then there's, like the higher end, like the brunches at Boheme. And then there's even like small things like karaoke and bingo that get put on throughout
Yeah.
this. And and then there's even like themed stuff that comes out. They're like um they put on like from certain eras or imitation of certain idols, and it's
Yeah.
just very interesting that you can find all these different things. Like I said, I guess for me it's different because I came from a place where that isn't a thing. It was just, here is the one gay bar and here is the one place that does drag, and it is the same drag and the same entertainers every week. In Houston, there are so many entertainers, and there's always new people, and there's all these experienced drag people, and there's always a new show, and there's these long running shows, and it's just, if you have an interest in something, you can find a show that puts that on.
Ah, I mean, I don't know if I'm sure there will be plenty of people that will, comment and say, "Oh, actually, there's been 10 or 20 queens from," but well, I'm gonna say I don't know of a single. I watched a little bit of Drag Race. Has there ever been a Houston queen? I can't
Um,
think of one.
I I want to say yes,
Okay, so maybe there
but
has.
that's just playing the safe side. I think I
Yeah, yeah.
can I tell you a secret? I've
I would love
never
to.
watched Drag Race.
You've never watched Drag Race?
Never. I have seen little bits and clips of it, just from like my partner watching bits and clips on the TV as like I'm passing through the room, but I have never sat and watched an episode of Drag Race.
All right. So you've heard it here. We are going to eventually, I don't know if it's going to be after this premiere. I don't know when, if it's this year or next year. Get your tits, your tails, your tushes, your balls, whatever you've got going on in gear I am going to do a reaction series with Frank. We are going to watch some Drag Race. I don't know how much. I am
Okay.
going to have Frank watch some Drag Race. It is now my right as a queer podcaster. It's essential viewing. I mean, I'm fucking with you, but I do mean that. I would love to do that with you at some point.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Sometimes I just get this like urge when I'm talking to somebody and they haven't watched something. I'm like, but wait, I can watch it with you. I just, I just nerd out that way.
It's
No, I
it's
actually,
I've heard enough about it and seen enough
oh,
like
sure.
small clips about it that I can like fake my way through a conversation or nod at the right times, like, oh yeah, Bob, she's funny for
Mm-hmm.
sure, you know?
You stand
Mm-hmm.
Alaska. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, and being and going to drag shows in Houston, I know all the songs, you know,
Yeah,
like I know all of Rue's songs. I know the Alaska
you
Thunderfuck
wear it well.
intro, right? You know, it's stuff that you hear over and over and over again if you go to enough drag shows. But yeah, I can't say that I've watched an episode or that I know the difference between any of the seasons or who's been on what season or why there's
I love
I think
it.
there's a UK version and some
Oh,
like
you're so precious. Oh my
something
God,
like
I love it.
superstars, which I'm assuming is the people who won.
Oh my God. I love that yours. It has been a long time since I have talked to somebody so fresh on Drag Race. It is really and truly invigorating. I just started watching a new series. It's World Champions or like Global All Stars. I hadn't been watching for a hot minute, but then I saw like Eva La Queen and Alyssa Edwards and some, Queen Kong. I was like, oh shit, I gotta tune into this. But anyway,
Yeah.
we will get to that.
I just remember moving here and everyone was talking about Drag Race, and that's all they kept saying. And was like, wow, the gay community here is really into like car races. That is so cool. Like I can get into this. This is awesome. And then come to find out, it's just ladies in heels, guys in heels doing these silly competitions on TV. And I was like, oh, I'm glad people thought I was joking when I brought up the car race because
Mhm.
I probably would have looked like an idiot if they knew that I
Well,
was serious.
I could tell, pretty early on when we started talking that you're very real. You just like you're you, and I love that about you. And fully, I, I am fully gooped and gagged that you are just so fucking cool that you're just like, yeah, I haven't seen it. Like you didn't pretend that you'd seen it. And I just, so my kudos to you for having a very strong sense of self and character. And like, look, queens out there, if you haven't watched Drag Race, it's okay. You don't have to watch Drag Race. There are many other ways to celebrate life and love and the pursuit and the LGBTQ spectrum that we all support here on Q2Q, the podcast. So just out of curiosity now I'm like deadly curious. What are you watching? Or what have you watched that you're like, you're nerd out about or anything? It can be anything.
Oh man. Geez. I really like Naruto, as cliche as that may be, or maybe not cliche. I don't know. Um,
I just started
I
rewatching fucking Yu-Gi-Oh! So you're among
I
friends
I
here.
yeah, last year I started rewatching the entire thing. And it was actually an anime that I refused to watch anime in high school. I don't know why. There was like this thing where I was just like, no, that's for nerds. That's stupid. Why do I want to watch this dumb cartoon? Like all my friends were into Dragon Ball Z and all this stuff. I was like, that just sounds dumb. I don't get it. Um,
How dare
while
you go and
simultaneous
expand your
well,
mind outside of
while
high school?
simultaneously watching stuff like Avatar and Pokemon,
Yes.
like, minor
Uh-huh.
but stuff that's anime, but they don't make it feel like anime. They're just kind of
Hmm.
planting that little seed.
This is
Um,
safe anime.
yeah, yeah, safe
Mhm.
little
Yeah.
snippets of anime. Yeah, and I remember I got COVID a couple years ago, and I sat down on the couch and Naruto was there, and I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And I got so into it. I have so much Naruto stuff, to the point where I actually drew out something that I want to get as a tattoo, like just huge nerd onto it, and it led me into all these other shows. And so, yeah, I watch a lot of anime now. So,
Dig it. Naruto. I cannot wait to see that tattoo. I'm sure it's going to be fierce. And just out of curiosity, as we wrap this up, I could keep talking to you. You're so, so fun. No, you haven't technically consented to it, but I've already roped you into a RuPaul's Drag Race watch-a-thon that we're gonna
oh,
do.
I'm down. I'm down. Message me. I'm so
Okay.
in.
Okay. But I'm curious, where can our listeners find you? Are you working on any projects right now, singing or acting in the future? Any like social media following that you'd like them to know about or anything?
I have an Instagram and a Facebook. My Facebook is just my name. My it's public. My Instagram is at RBR Duck BOI, Rubber Duck Boy. Um, I
Oh,
really love rubber ducks too. I have a rubber duck collection. It's kind of dumb, but it's
that's
fun.
not dumb at all.
But yeah, TRANSFOK is the only thing I'm in. Um, it's currently my only thing. I'm working on my bachelor's for nursing right now, so I'm not really taking on any new projects except for that. Between
Course.
working a full-time job and going to school full time, and then planning for season two. Just not a lot else going on outside of that. So,
So I'm so curious, what advice do you have for people? Because you are working to be a nurse, you're full
mhm,
time, and you're
mhm.
acting, and you're watching Naruto. How does one balance it all? You're doing so much, and you're supporting a partner too.
Yeah.
You have a relationship. So
Yeah, I think if you want to do something, like if you're really passionate about something or someone, you find the time for it. I love my job. And that's why I'm working on advancing my career by getting my bachelor's. And
yeah,
um, my partner is amazing, and he's very supportive of me and what I want to do, and I love everything that he does, and I want to be supportive for him. Um, so there are times where, it's a Tuesday night and he's hosting karaoke, and I know that I have some schoolwork to do, and I just got off of a 12-hour shift, and I'm just dead tired, and all I want to do is take a nap. But I will still make that little drive and go and sit for, an hour, maybe two, and do some karaoke for him, and finding finding the time off from work, even if I have to call in sick a couple times to
sure.
to be able to get there for the filming. Like I said, I think it just comes down to, if you're truly passionate about something, if you truly love it, if you really want to do it, you're going to find a way. And I think that all kind of circles back to Carly starting this whole endeavor with TRANSFOK. She had this vision. She's very passionate about it. She found a way to make it happen.
Yes. It sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like you are also passionate about people, and just a lot of these things seem tied to like, Carly and the people that need your help with trans folk, the people you help in at your job, the people you'll be able to help in the future. It seems like you're very much a people person and you're a giver. So that's really, really, really powerful. And it sounds like the way to do all that is to do it at your own pace. Like when you're a giver, I think sometimes we have this tendency to, overextend. And like you said, sometimes you're really, really tired, but listening to what you need and vibrating, at the frequency that makes you comfortable, I think is the way to do it. It sounds like you found a good equilibrium. You should be very proud of yourself, to be
Yeah,
honest.
thank you. I think too, like that was part of like the Naruto thing. Like, yeah, I was sick, I had COVID, I couldn't be at work, but it was also nice having something where I just didn't have anything else going on except for watching this silly show, And
Yes.
and even, I do think you're right. I am a giver. I will give and give and give until I have nothing left to give, including to myself. And I think I've struggled with finding that little balance of just sitting on the couch and vegging for 2 hours, just binge watching a show and, eating some ramen noodles.
Enter me. We're watching Drag Race. Okay, perfect. So I need to let you go, but I would love to know, is there any way that you pitch the show? You know, if you wanted somebody to watch Transfolk that hadn't seen it, you know, no spoilers, of course, but like, what do you think is a reason people should just pick this shit up and digest it?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a drama, but it still covers stuff that trans people deal with day to day. And I think it's great that there is now a show that focuses on the LGBTQ community, specifically the T part of that, and uses trans actors and actresses and directors and writers and producers. You know, it's all community based, and I think it's very important. Even if you're not interested in the writing, even if you're not interested in the acting, I think sharing it and getting the word out there, whether you're going to watch it or not, is very important, because there may be someone out there who is afraid of coming out or afraid of dealing with these experiences or doesn't have that representation that they want to see themselves, in TV.
Yeah.
That it's not there because there's a 5 second trans story arc played by a straight cis person. No one wants to see that when they're dealing with those actual life experiences. So I think it's very important to just share this project and get it out there so that people, especially younger people, can see that representation on the screen.
Yeah. Well, and to me, it's an indication of us moving forward. It's,
Sure.
because, movies and TV shows that have existed before, like, hey, uh, as a, I can only speak from the perspective of a gay man, but, we were happy with what we got. And it was
Hmm.
great that we got what we did get. But in order to push the envelope, in order to get to a place where we feel like there's nuance to our stories, people that, are us, are represented on screen, the writing and the acting, and even the producing to some extent, being centric with, by, and for those communities is just a way to move forward because new things are going to be explored. It's
Hmm.
inevitable when you have the people that behind it that go through it, is you're just going to get a different story. And like, why wouldn't we want that? Why wouldn't
Hmm.
we want, these different stories as we are craving as a culture for fresh in the world of, AI and remakes and reboots and revamps and, soft reboots and remakes. It's like, what a great time to just
Yeah.
bring in new people to tell new stories. So why wouldn't anybody, regardless of how you identify, why wouldn't you want that? And it's so important. Like as a cisgendered person, I believe it's truly like my task to be a voice to like say, go watch this, go watch
Hmm.
this stuff that, you know, and so my instinct is to tell everybody out there, you don't also have to identify as trans to either A, watch this show or spread it around. And actually, it should be incentive enough. That should be incentive enough for you because in order for us to build the best global community, I think we really should stand up for people that aren't aren't us. We should be standing up for people who are different than us, not just people that look like, sound like, are like exactly who we are. That's how we're going to make the best world possible. So, yeah, share trans folk, absolutely. And if you are available in Galveston, then you should, or if you just, you want to travel, get on a bus or ride down with me. The premiere party and screening of all 7 episodes of season 1 will be at 23rd Street Station Piano Bar on Tuesday, October 15th. And that's starting at 5 p.m. with the screening starting around 6:30. And then I think they're going to end around 10:30. We don't know exactly because there will be some intermissions, a cast Q&A to follow, and then of course beforehand, as RuPaul would be proud to hear, there's a red carpet event. So I'm looking forward to seeing all of Carly's wigs on all of her friends. I cannot wait. So
So what is
we
it? We're gonna slay and sashay, right? Is that it?
already know. Absolutely. Yes. So yeah, we're Shantae here to stay. And thank you so much, Frank, for being here. I've truly enjoyed talking with you. And is there anything else you wanted to share with our listeners?
No, just share the show, share this podcast, and Be gay, do crime.
Be gay, do crime.
Be
That
gay,
I,
do
I
crime.
I couldn't have said it better myself. I'm going to end on that. Be gay and do crime and follow us on Instagram at queer_2_queer.